Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Shantel Ochoa, who is a Shamanic Reiki Practitioner, a Reiki Master Teacher, a Ceremonialist. She is a teacher and a co-facilitator at Moon Rising Shamanic Institute, and she has her own business. And today we're going to talk about archetypes. Shantel teaches courses on archetypes, and so today we break down the 4 main archetypes. There are so many, and we have attributes of them all, but these 4, the victim, the prostitute, the saboteur, and the child, we all hold, and we have intimate, deep relationships. Once we learn how to work with these archetypes, then we can move them from the shadow into the light. And I can tell you that I'm so excited and passionate about this topic because since I discovered it, I feel like there's been so much growth for me. And this is a really beautiful way to work with our shadow that's fun and light and isn't as intense. So I really hope you'll enjoy this. Please, if you are, take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And I'm going to hop on in with Shantel. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hey, Shantel, welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited to have you. I'm really excited about our topic today. Today we're not gonna deep dive because I think it would take many podcasts to deep dive, but we're gonna touch on the 4 main archetypes that every single person has, and then maybe how they affect our lives and our relationships. But I wanted to just let people know how you and I met. I know that you are one of the main teachers at the Moon Rising Shamanic Institute. And so when I did the shamanic, what was the name of that course?
Soul Rising.
Soul Rising. It was amazing. And that's where I met you. And so I'm so happy to have you. I think you're super knowledgeable about many things. You are a Shamanic Reiki Practitioner, a Reiki Master Teacher, a Ceremonialist, and you do Oracle and Tarot readings, which are really fun. I've been a part of those as well. And you do teach courses on what we're talking about today. So if people want to deep dive further, they can with you. But let's just talk about for people that have no awareness of what archetypes are and what the system is, where's a good jumping off point to begin?
Okay, so definitely from the teachers themselves, so they can refer to Carolyn Myss, and they can also refer to Dolores Cannon. Jung is also one of the primary, like the fathers of the archetypes. And then Carolyn Myss has really taken it into the metaphysical, into the spiritual realm of it. So any one of those 3 mystics, you could absolutely deep dive in and read their books and watch their own shows and things that they have on YouTube and stuff. So
yeah. I happen to have right next to me, I didn't even plan this, but I do have it, is the Carolyn Myss archetype cards. And the reason I'm so excited about this topic is I bought this deck, not really knowing what it was. And then I started reading about it, and everybody has 12 archetypes. And we'll talk about the 4 that every single person has. And then we have 8 that are unique to us. And I think there's 70 in this deck, over 70. And I was just flipping through, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, these fit me, these don't. And then I got it down to about 20. My husband and I did this together. And then I needed to get it down to 8. And so it was a lot of researching and looking online and looking through the book. And then I cast my wheel. I cast the cards. That's a whole nother topic. But when I did that, I started looking into all of these archetypes further. And I feel like I got a lot of growth in a really short amount of time because I feel like it's a really fun way to work with shadow and look in shadow. And especially the 4 that we're going to talk about today that every single person has. What I love is that once you are able to understand them more completely and see the shadow bits, then they're not lingering in the shadows as much. and you are more able to discern how to pull it out of the shadow and transform it into light. And so I think it's really hands-on, really useful. It's really, you can deep dive or you can kind of just touch in it. But I love that it's a great way to work with shadow that's fun.
I actually love that you're bringing up the shadow, because I think for a lot of people, shadow, right? The term shadow, everyone gets a little nervous about, but really, I see our shadow as our warrior. So that's the version of us that has taken on the hard lessons in life. And so when we start working with the shadow archetypes or working with our shadow self, we're learning the parts of us that still need healing and how to integrate that into our light. So the more we can shine ourselves into that and really deep dive with our shadow and accept that that is the part of us that has just taken on so much, it really does help us to walk the path on our spiritual journey, to enlighten ourselves, to just be able to say, okay, you know what? I went through all those traumas or experiences in my life, but I can also transmute them. And when you transmute them, it is literally stepping you back onto your spiritual journey and your spiritual path. And so when we work with the archetypes, we have 4 collective archetypes we come into life with. And these are on a soul contract level. So when you get into Carolyn Miss's Sacred Contracts, her book, that is the pairing with the archetypical cards that you're sharing. So you have the cards, you have the book, and it's all about our sacred contracts, our soul contracts. So when on a soul level, there's like a meeting of the souls, if you will, and we come together and we agree on certain lessons in our life and who will be our parents, our siblings, our children, and so forth, and who was also going to be there to work with us on a spiritual level, our guides, and who are or what do we come in that kind of shapes our personality and shapes who we become, and then through free will. And so our 4 is the victim, the saboteur, the prostitute, and the child. So we all come in with those 4 collectives, which is really important to understand, that because that's how we like work and negotiate with each other. Because if my victim sees your victim, my prostitute sees yours, or my saboteur, and so forth. So what ends up happening is that we can play on each other's insecurities, our victim, our saboteur, and how do we self-sabotage? How do we sabotage each other? And that is the shadow. But if you alchemize them and you step into the light of them, then that's when you become the mirror. So then I become, say, if you're in your victim, but I'm in my warrior, and that is one of the archetypes I work with that alchemizes the victim, I become the warrior mirror for you. So then you see in me what is possible in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty powerful.
Well, and everybody has bits and pieces and traits of every single archetype.
Yes.
But the ones that we're talking about today, those 4 are the ones that are hardwired in all of us, that once we go through this, we'll be able to recognize really easy in ourselves and others. And I feel like those are the ones that play out the patterns over and over and over and over throughout our life. And so by knowing them and understanding them and embracing them, then we shine that light onto it and are able to just move through it a lot faster. So what do you think we should start with?
The victim.
Yes.
Yeah. So in my teachings, I do the victim, the saboteur, the prostitute, and then the child.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find that and they definitely are interchangeable. But for me, for us to get the concept in the process of moving through them, I feel like the victim shows up the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the victim, that one really is working with the emotions and how do we victimize ourselves, the why is this happening to me mindset, all of that. I'm going to say it's a lower vibration of thinking. It is, but with it too is knowing how you walk in life. If you're in the victim mindset all the time, then it's what can come for you that's in your favor. Because like frequency matches frequency, right? If you're putting all the negative thoughts out there of life is always against me, nothing is happening in my favor. If I didn't have any luck, I'd have no luck at all. That kind of stuff, like bad luck follows me. So we also have to think about how we speak and how we show up, how we think about everything, because the victim, the energy of that shows
Mm-hmm.
up and the universe matches you with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about how victim shows up in intimate relationships too.
Yeah. So for example, you're in a relationship, and if you're in the victim mindset and say your partner says something to you jokingly or doesn't mean anything by it, but then you hear it through the victim ears, you see it
Mm-hmm.
through the lens of the victim, suddenly you're like, oh my gosh. And then that fight happens, right? That argument, or you feel like now you got to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, that other person may not have meant anything by it, but because you're in that lens or that energy of the victim, it's really hard to see that anybody would be joking with you in a way that is not intentionally trying to hurt you.
Yeah.
And so also, if you've been hurt in a past relationship, you assume that every other relationship is going to hurt you too. Like, oh,
Mm.
he cheated on me. That means they're going to cheat on me. So I have to overly protect myself and build walls that they didn't create. And it just starts leading you then into the saboteur, who
Mm-hmm.
then starts to sabotage the relationships and how they partner and pair together, because they're actually all like allies as well as like individual energies of
Mm.
ourself. So it can become very complex, but when you're just working with the surface of them, is knowing how they show up and having that
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness. Like, okay, I see my victim. What am I going to do about
Mm-hmm.
that?
I mean, it could be your partner puts you down or is verbally abusive, and
Oh
then
yeah.
you just complain about it and you complain about it and you complain about it, but you're allowing it to happen. So you're sitting into that victim role. I mean, it could be with friends, it could be in a work situation where your boss, you like maybe love your job and your boss is kind of putting you down all the time and you're just complaining about it and complaining about it. That would be another victim example.
Yeah. And a lot of times that's because we attract that. We
Hmm.
attract those people into our life because that's the energy in which we're resonating with. So
Hmm.
if you think of how energy works, and like I said earlier, attracting it, you're going to attract where you are. So if and that might be difficult to hear. Sometimes these are very much in your face. So it's like, how can I be the victim when somebody's abusing me? But a lot of it is because we're not setting our boundaries. We're not setting to say, no, this is not acceptable.
Hmm.
Like, I know my worth. The
Hmm.
victim doesn't always know their worth. So when you alchemize that into the warrior, and the warrior side of you shows up and says, yeah, no, you don't get to treat me like that. Here is my line, and if you cross it, I'm out. And a lot of times the victim just stays, like you said,
Yeah.
and they'll see it in all their relationships of how they are the victim to all circumstances.
Hmm. I had this really interesting experience really recently where I've been studying these archetype cards, and somebody had said something to me right before I went into a ceremony space, and it put me in a spiral. And I remember laying there the whole night and I was in my victim. And I was looking at myself above to below and was so clear that I was sitting in my victim and I was contracted and I was curled in a ball and in that moment I was thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm in my victim and I don't know how to get out." And it was really uncomfortable. I think this was a lesson was I sat in it for 12 hours and it was highly uncomfortable and was so clear of what was happening. It was like, "Oh, this person hurt me." And then after I sat with it and integrated the ceremony, it struck me. It was so common sense though, but it was like they hurt me or I'm allowing this person to hurt me. Even that statement is very disempowering, as if they have power over me, they control me, they control my feelings, instead of me owning that I control my feelings and I control myself. And so through that, I ended up setting some boundaries, like we just talked about, and reclaiming my power, where it's like, no, they don't have power over me. I have power over me. I can expand. I'm choosing to contract, and realizing that we have choice. And it
Yeah.
was those three things that allowed me to transmute that. And now I have that like in my toolkit in the back, where if I see myself going into victim, it's realizing I have choice. I can choose to stay in this situation or I can choose to leave it. I can choose to expand, or I can choose to contract. And it was such a deeply powerful lesson for me. This is why I'm bringing this forward, and my friends and I are having archetype casting parties at the end of the month. And it's because once those light bulbs go off, it's, dare I say, easy to move through it.
Yeah. It's like once you're awakened to it, you can't go back to sleep. And so when you have the toolkit, like you're saying, and that is just so powerful. Even if you're going through it in the process in which you were, there's reason for, I think, the purpose of that person giving you something that triggered the victim in you. It's because you were ready to transmute that energy in yourself. Otherwise, that comment would have just bounced right off of you.
Right.
It wouldn't even
100%.
have phased you, but because you are actually tuned into their victim as well. So they're hurting. So they had to hurt you so that, and it's just this cycle of energy that goes back and forth. And once we can recognize, no, I can stand in my power. I call me back. You don't have power over my emotions. I do. It changes the whole game, the whole game with people. And then you're like you said, I have choice. I can choose to sit here and to ride this energy and to connect to this collective thought, or I can choose to raise my energy, my vibration to a different thought pattern and process. And when you do that, that's it. That's the trajectory in which you choose. But that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Like in the consciousness of the victim or the consciousness of higher learning and stepping into a different state of mindset. Yeah.
But I think it's interesting, and I think it's common too, that when we're in that victim place, whether it be work or with friends or with a relationship or with money or with bad things happening, we don't feel like we have choice. And just to actually know that you do, even if it might not feel like you have choice, that's empowering within itself.
100%. Yeah. When I first learned this stuff, it hit off like a big light bulb. And then I ended up doing a whole year of natural mysticism. So I went through each one of these for 4 months. So I was in the victim for 4 months and the saboteur and the prostitute. And it's intense because when you first start off, it does feel like a jab, like the universe, the life in itself is just coming at you. And it's like, but through time and process of just self-awareness of your own patterns, because in the end, it all comes back to our own accountability, right? And that's exactly what you're explaining. It's like, I have choice. I have power over me. So you come back to accountability, and radical accountability changes the entire spectrum of your life. So once you're like, I'm playing the victim right now, you can't victimize me. I can only do that for myself.
Yes.
Then that just changes the whole thing. So when I was going through it and recognizing that I have the power, I empowered myself so quickly. And I can process through the victim. Like if it shows up even now, like if I have a victim moment, I can sit within seconds and go, okay, I see you. Why are you here? What are you trying to show me? I can track that back to some memory, some experience in the past, recognize that. Who's showing up there? Is it the saboteur? Is it my child? Typically it's the child. Then the child will show up. And then you see that memory, give it love, give it light, Reiki energy, whatever you're, working with. And then you transmute it in that moment. And then you can give thanks to all of the experience, but then you release it. I always say you leave it at the altar. You don't need to pick it back up. You just process. And so I find it to be very fascinating when you recognize it in yourself, and then you can play with it because you're like, oh, okay, I see you trying to poke me over there, but you know what? I'm standing in my power today, so I'm good.
Well, and there's something nice about realizing that everyone has these archetypes, so that there is some kindness and compassion for self when you're going through it. It's like, and then you start to see it in other people, and you have kindness and compassion when it shows up for them as well.
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it because we don't always have compassion and kindness when we feel like we're being hurt by others. But when we can step into the role of forgiveness and have compassion and offer love, because we're receiving that same energy back, The moment we give it, we receive it. So it is this process. But then if we step into the saboteur, that's all the mind. So the mind is about your thoughts. What are you putting out there energetically in your thought pattern? And how are you tripping yourself up? And that's a hard one for people to accept too, because we don't want to think of ourselves as the one that is taking away our own opportunities, or, we like to blame. It's always a blame game. Like, so and so did this, my boss did that, but when we can sit in our own accountability with it, it's like, wow, I'm the one self-sabotaging. So literally then you start becoming that magician that can clear everything out in front of you and be the road opener and start unblocking it all. And then you become that sacred witness. And when you're the sacred witness, you're not attaching yourself to the outcomes or to the people and the emotions and the thoughts. You're literally just standing in your own power, witnessing the chaos around you and going, yeah, I see it, but I'm not in it. I'm not of it.
Mm-hmm. So what are some other examples of saboteur and how that shows up?
Definitely in relationships, at work. If you feel like you've put your all into your work and then you give it to your boss or you give it to a coworker and then they come and tell you, oh no, you need to do this or do that. How quickly we are to judge and to judge them for judging us, when in reality, a lot of times it's us judging ourselves first. Because you might not have put 100% into it. Maybe there were some distractions. Maybe you allowed other things to come in and you're just giving the work that you have, right? And then it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm just getting seen. And we don't all want to be seen.
Yeah.
We're like cloaked and we're not.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working with people that who work with energy or know, it's really hard to shield yourself. And a lot of times, because we are seen, we're energy workers. But when you're
Yeah.
just working with people who don't, because there are a lot of sleepers out there that don't and aren't aware of it, it's a lot easier to kind of shroud yourself. But when you're awake to yourself, it's time for us to see where we are,
Yeah.
right? And that's the saboteur. The saboteur wakes us up to that and says, look, this is how you're messing up. And
Yeah.
then we have to say, yeah, I see that. You can be in denial or acceptance. Again, coming back to choice.
My girlfriend just came to me recently and she said she can start seeing this pattern for herself where she makes a ton of money and then all of a sudden it's gone and she's broke. And then she'll land something and she'll make a crazy amount of money in a really short period of time. And then she's broke again, like completely broke. And so that would be another example of how we can do that in money and how we can sabotage ourselves. I don't know how she's doing that. I don't know her story, but
Yeah. Money is a funny one because money is something that really we need it, right? I mean, that's how we live. But at the same time, it's energy. So if we can see money as energy, then like what you put out, you receive back. And if you like hoard it or you don't honor it, don't respect it, money is fleeting. So it is, you can play that with it, oh my gosh, I get all this money and then it is gone. So what are her patterns of self sabotage? Chances are she thinks that she's already creating the downfall by her thoughts. So she's manifesting, I will receive. And at the same time, she's manifesting that she will lose it. And those are her thoughts that are putting that forward, which is the saboteur. Yeah.
So, okay, if she's doing that, then how does that magician come in and help her?
So the magician's going to come forward and change that mindset. So every time she can do thought catching first. So if she's already anticipating that she's going to lose whatever is coming forward, she needs to change that and say, I'm abundant. I'm prosperous. I have all the things I need. I have more than enough money. Like my bank account is going to be full. She has to visualize that and speak to herself in a way of abundance instead of lack. So somewhere, if she follows the breadcrumbs, there was scarcity in her life, whether it was in her childhood or a relationship, somewhere there was scarcity that has not been healed yet. And that's where that saboteur then started showing up, because it's like, I don't see that I'll ever be fully financially stable because I'm always going to have this scarcity.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, there's one theme that I hear over and over and over again from my clients and from friends too, is maybe there's some anxious attachment, there's some abandonment fear. And
Yep.
so they get in these relationships and then they're really awesome. And then they sabotage the relationships. They'll do something or they'll get scared or they'll start abandoning the person before the person abandons them just out of fear. And that seems to be such a common cycle for people and a difficult one to recognize, or even when they recognize it, they're not really sure how to get out of that loop.
Yeah. Seeing it, recognizing our own patterns is difficult, right? So it's like we can recognize the patterns in others and then, but have no like connection, like we don't see it. And
Yeah.
so when we can then take a moment and go, you know what? Yeah, that is me. I'm doing that. And seeing why do I feel like that? And what in me invokes that need to leave and to pull back. Now it can be the other person. The other person can absolutely be treating you in a way that you're like I said, you're setting your boundaries. But if it's a pattern of having to leave before it gets bad, I think that's more the child archetype than it is so much the saboteur.
Could they
Because
play together? They could be playing in that relationship
yeah,
together. The
that's
child's
possible.
wounding is creating the sabotaging in the relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. So just jumping ahead to the child archetypes, we have 6 child archetypes. There are more, but the primary 6 are the divine child, the nature child, the magical child, eternal child, the orphan, and the wounded. So one of those is going to be your primary. Now they might layer, a lot of them do. Some people will be like, I'm the divine and I'm the eternal and or nature, but one is going to be your primary. And so the wounded and the orphan child, it's kind of like what we're talking about here. When you probably were abandoned at some time in your life as a child, that you felt that. And if you think about it, from a child's perspective, you may not have had a parent that absolutely left you, but you felt like they weren't there to engage with you. You felt like they were always busy, right? That's the orphan child. Doesn't mean you were actually abandoned. It means that as a child, you probably played a lot by yourself. You know, your parents weren't available to you. So it created this sense of abandonment. And then as you're growing older, you're always going to save yourself by reserving yourself first. So it's like, I'm going to pull back before you can hurt me. I'm going to show up with this big wall in my life before you can even tear it down, you know, those kinds of things. And that's more your child. So recognizing your pattern is taking that all the way back to your childhood and saying, what happened there? And is that still true today? Like, am I still that 5-year-old that felt like I wasn't taken care of? And if you're not, if it's not true today, then you can start to alchemize that and transmute that energy.
Yeah. What about wounded child? I feel like that is probably one of the most common ones.
So the wounded child is also has the orphan child in it. Do you know what your child is?
It's the wounded child. I know it well. I don't like it.
Yeah, the wounded child is interesting because it's just we've gone through a lot of trauma, you know, however that showed up in our lives. And the interesting thing with the wounded child, though, is that you always see the wounded child in others, and then it's to help them. So for me, I've been in education for 25 years, like my whole career. And as a sign language interpreter for deaf children, and I'm telling you, every wounded child would always be attracted to me. Like in that, I could work with them when others couldn't, and I didn't understand that then. I just knew I was good working with these students that had behaviors and that would like to take you out if they could, or fighters, that kind of thing, behavioral issues. It wasn't until I really started deep diving in this, I'm like, no wonder, because my wounded child could always see theirs. And so I was always able to help balance them, to see the triggers before they acted out, to calm them down, relax them, give them that safe space, go for a walk, whatever it was. Whereas maybe another staff member could not see that because they weren't resonating with it. To them, there was fear. they're just like, get that kid away from me, because they probably resonate with a different child in themselves. And it's fascinating. And then when you meet adults and you see their wounded child, it's really like, yeah, you went through some shit. But again, it's the warrior that stands up, like our shadow self that comes in and says, yeah, I had to absorb all that pain for you so that you can now walk the way that you're walking. And it molds us into who we are now.
I think it was just the simple fact of recognizing that that was my archetype card, and that there is a tendency for wounded children to blame things on their wounding. It's like, oh, that happened because this happened when I was a kid. And I immediately saw that as a theme, which immediately got me to stop doing that. Where I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not gonna blame everything on all the things that happened 30 years ago, 35 years ago, right?
Yeah, when you just sit with, and I mean, we know people like that, adults that are like, that always go back. Well, when I was a child, my mom did this, or when I was a kid, my dad did that. And there comes a point where we need to be adults and say, you know what? Yeah, that happened then, but I'm now responsible for where my life takes me now. And that is, that's the opposite side of that spectrum, is then the child becomes sovereign. So the whole point in our archetypes is to become a sovereign being. And how do you stand in your power? And how are you not negotiating your truth, your integrity, which is the prostitute? So the prostitute is all about, how do you negotiate your own sovereignty, your own action, your truth, your love, for the sense of security. Like, okay, if you're going to give me a paycheck, I'm going to do all of this that you expect from me, even if you don't feel like it's in your highest good. So if your boss is requiring you to work outside of your line of scope, but you do it anyway because they're holding that paycheck over you.
Yep.
Or you feel like you can't be honest with your partner about your feelings because you don't want them to leave you and abandon you. So you're going to negotiate that. So then all kinds of other things start happening. You start having blocked energy centers, start having illnesses. So it's really focusing there's so much that comes into it, because then you got your chakras and your energy centers and all the things. But
Yeah.
when you recognize it in yourself, you can start releasing illness. You can start releasing your abandonment issues, your trauma pains, your trauma bonds. You can start offering forgiveness. There's just so much that comes from it in a positive way.
I actually feel like I might have heard Carolyn Miss talk about how a lot of the archetypes is about reclaiming your personal power.
Yeah.
And sometimes people hear the word power and that's really triggering. And I've come to learn it's not power over, it's not being above, it's like your own personal power. And then a lot of things create power loss. So when you're in your wounded child, that's a power loss. It's like other people have affected you and you're wounded. Same with the victim, where you've let the other people have power over you. Actually, same with the prostitute, where you're allowing that to happen. I always think of the prostitute as this example of hanging out with people because they buy you things, or going to dinner because somebody's going to pay for dinner, or going to a work dinner that you don't want to go to because they're going to buy it, or being in a job because there's an awesome paycheck and then you're like a prostitute to that job. It's the name is scary, the prostitute. Nobody wants to own the prostitute, but it seems like there's this big theme of power over and reclamation of personal power, standing in your own truth, setting boundaries, getting clarity on your desires and wants and needs, things like that.
Yeah, it is. And all of them, they have a negative connotation with them. And I think that's why a lot of people kind of steer away from working with the archetypes, because they never want to label themselves as the victim or the prostitute. And in society, when we think of prostitute, we think of giving ourselves up sexually, right? You think of the street corner prostitute. And that isn't what it's about. Now, you can be sexually giving yourself away, as the prostitute. But really, it is about giving away your power. When are you saying yes when you mean to say no? When you don't have the voice to speak up for yourself because you're afraid of what's going to be taken away from you. And so that's the prostitute. But we have given it a different identification. So people are like, that's not me. But when you start to dive deeper into the meaning of what it is and the energy behind it, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
shit, that does make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
we do that every day until you recognize it. It's like, how many hours are you putting out there? Like, I can say right now, I have a full plate right now. So I'm like feeling like there's a little bit of the prostitute in there. Why do I keep like filling myself
Mm-hmm.
up to the point of where it can be a little bit overwhelming? Then I have to sit back, and then that's when I allow the lover to come in and just say, okay, you can nurture yourself. Take that 5-minute break. You can let somebody know, you know what? I can't do that session today, or you know what, I'm not going to do that master class right now. Like, that's when you can start self-loving and nurturing yourself, is when you feel that pressure. And when you're talking about expansion versus contracted energy, that's it. The moment
Mm-hmm.
you feel that contraction, that's when you need to start looking at yourself. Who am I playing with right now? And what am I doing to myself that is creating this contraction? Because personally, I want to live in expansive energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like an interesting dialogue with yourself. Am I expansive or am I contracted? As humans, we see ourselves actually as contracted energy because we think of ourselves limited to these physical bodies, when in reality, our spiritual body is gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need to be resonating with, and knowing that, yeah, I came here to be the lover and the magician and to be the sovereign being and the warrior in my life. And these other aspects are here to wake me up. They're here
Mm-hmm.
to nudge me into my purpose and my mission of why I came in,
Mm-hmm.
which is going back to the soul contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we hop into the other children? Because there were 6. So we did wounded child. That's one.
Yeah. And the orphan, we kind of went over both
Oh,
of
that's
those.
right. Mm-hmm.
The divine child is basically the child that sees good in everyone, even when they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the person that's always trying to see the positive in every situation, every being. They know that there's something beyond themselves, right? They're connected to God, universe, source, however you connect with it. The shadow of that is, even when somebody's taking advantage of them, they're making excuses for it. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, they don't really mean to be like
Mm-hmm.
that. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, they do.
I
Because they're
think
wounded is
yes.
taking advantage of your divine.
Mm-hmm. My husband's a divine child.
Oh,
When I met him, I was like, "Is he really that naive?" But he's just like, everyone's good, and he would get taken advantage of, and he's so much better now. But it was interesting watching him the process.
yeah. So now when you recognize it, you're just like,
Mhm.
oh, babe, the divine in you, your divine
Mhm.
child is showing up. Yeah.
Mhm. But he
Uh,
still has a really hard time, like, realizing that each man on his own for himself sometimes, like in work situations, and he's like, "Oh, it's all good. We're all about collaboration and love." And then something will happen. He's like, "Oh, they're just caring about themselves and not about everyone else." And it's like, "Yeah, babe, it's
even
kind of what
genetically
happens."
toxic smog world. Yeah, everyone's out for themselves. No. Um, I love collaboration, but at the same time, you do got to know that not everybody is equally there.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they're trying to just take what they can for themselves. But what a nice, like, when you do have the divine child, there's so much playfulness in that,
Mhm.
because he is innocent.
Mhm.
So he's seeing
Yeah.
all the good and the possibilities. And you, as the wounded child, you're coming in with that more scorned, like, perspective. What are they trying to take from you?
Right, right, right. Yep. Uh-huh. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The nature child, that's the child that is going to connect with nature and animals over people. So
Mm.
that's the child that escaped the household or always wanted to be out in nature. Um, it's funny because they're not as grounded as you think they would be, because they're connected to nature, but they're more in their head and more just like, oh, and I love nature, and I totally connect with nature spirits and all that. But being grounded, a lot of nature people aren't grounded. They're kind of
Hmm.
like, they have that fairy energy where you feel like they're kind of flighty and just like, woo, all the time.
Yes.
And you're like, can you just ground yourself? Like, go connect with the earth.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The magical child is the one that sees magic in everything, and people really connect. So my husband's the magical child. And
Mhm.
so he just does. He is a quick manifester. He sees life in a different way. Like, he doesn't have that wounded child that wants to see all the negative in things. He's not like that. He is the one that will quickly take a negative response and spin it so positive.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow. And I learned that. He actually helped me heal a lot of my wounded child aspects, because I can come in and be like, oh my God, da 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 da. Like, say you come in something simple, like, dude, it's so hot outside. And he was like, well, how nice to come into a house with AC. Like that. Like, it's cool to be in here. I'm like, okay. Or we're watching TV. This is one of my favorites with him. We're watching TV, and I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm all about like traveling, adventure, and we'll be watching something. I'm like, man, I want to go there. And he's like, you're there right now. Like, take that in. I'm like, and he will literally travel through what he sees, what he
That's
watches.
awesome.
Yeah. And
What's the shadow?
the shadow of the magical is for me, I think it's more like it's kind of not being logical in a lot of ways sometimes, because we do also have to see that not everything is magical, right?
Mhm.
So it's a hard knock for them. It's like, oh, there are people that do take advantage, or that
Mhm.
they aren't positive in their mindset. So for the magical child, being around negativity is extremely difficult for them.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you're around siphoners, because the shadow of all of these can really siphon off energy. And so if you get with somebody that is real stuck in their shadow, they can drain your energy really quick. And
Yeah.
I think like the magical child and the divine child, they can really be siphoned if they don't protect their own energy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then we have the eternal child. The eternal child is the one that doesn't want to grow up. That's like the Peter Pan syndrome.
Oh, totally. Everybody knows somebody like that.
Hmm. Everybody. Where they don't want to grow up, they see themselves young
Yeah.
forever. But then the shadow of that, they can be draining on you when you have that person that's always looking for a place to live, or is always needing to borrow money, or
Mhm.
needing all the time because they can't get their adult life. Like, they're not adulting well. And then they're always plugging into somebody else's resources.
Mhm.
Mhm. But then the interesting part is, like, you're talking about casting the will. And so we won't go real deep in it, but the will itself, when you're casting them, you're casting them into your 12 zodiac houses.
Mhm.
So when you recognize where each one lies, you can say, oh my gosh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, if you have the saboteur in your home and you battled with your siblings and your parents as a child, and then
Mhm.
you're the wounded child on top of that, yeah, you can come in, just blow your house up. Like, you can just like, done. I've you come in fighting, angry all the time or whatever. And or you can have, like, say, in your spirituality in that house. And now how are you walking in your spiritual journey? And
Mm.
are you can you sabotage that? I'm kind of using saboteur right now as my example, but can you be the magician in your spiritual journey, or
Mhm.
do you show up as the saboteur? So they
Mm.
really play a part because they have their roles, they have their energy, and then you work off of that zodiac of the house as well.
So I'm looking at mine. It's funny because I didn't even know it was here on my desk. My saboteur is in creativity, joy of being.
Yeah. See, so you really have to work on staying focused on your joy,
Mhm.
your happiness. So that sounds like, as your saboteur, if you're not vibrating high enough, then you can be the one that sulks in the corner.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
getting stuck in the thought pattern of what happened throughout your day. Well, so and so said that this morning. And instead of just letting it be in the moment, you'll create a bigger story throughout your day until you've either resolved it, or you have
Mhm.
to have a conversation, or you probably went and talked to like 5 other people about what just happened.
Yeah. And so, okay. So let's talk a little bit about how to transmute them. So the victim to the warrior is about stepping into that warrior energy and realizing that you have choice
Hmm.
and claiming your personal power,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Setting your boundaries, speaking your truth, knowing that no one or anything has any power over you, that you do,
Mhm.
you can stand up for it. It's really taking on that warrior pose, and knowing that when the victim is there, What do you need to do to stand up for yourself? And sometimes it is having those hard conversations. Personally, me, I'm more of an energy worker on that. I like to do the energy healing on a situation more than I like to go and have those conversations. But some people are very vocal and they need to go and have it.
Mhm.
But I've learned personally, no, I'm going to go do the energy part of that because it's way more effective. Even though the person doesn't know you're doing it, when you
Yeah.
change you change everything around you. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like the truth of you change your world, you change the world around you. That's it. You change yourself, everyone else starts to comply because either they're going to shift away
Yeah.
or they're going to grow themselves because they need to stay in the energy in which you're growing into.
Mhm.
And so that's the warrior.
Yeah.
The warrior comes in strong and powerful, but knowing too that even the alchemist can have a shadow self. So your warrior can come in as a wounded warrior and to be the destroyer, or it comes in as a light warrior and it wants to fix what needs to be fixed, but at the same time is speaking through its own truth.
Mhm.
And then you have the saboteur that is the magician. So, how do you manifest? How do you grow? How do you know that you have the ability to create? That we're all co creators, right? We're all
Mhm.
co creators of source. And so, when you know that, you can tap into that energy and say, no, this is going to happen in my favor because I desire it, because I earned it. I know it in myself. And that starts to release the saboteur from challenging you and allowing the magician to step in.
Mhm. And I like what you said about thought catching. So all of a sudden you're starting to have, oh, I'm gonna have a bad day, or I'm gonna go to this thing and nobody's gonna talk to me, or I'm gonna do a public speaking event, I'm gonna fail, whatever it is, and it's just catch it and
Yeah.
then flip it.
Yeah. That's one thing, like, with my clients and stuff and students is that is so prevalent in my, like, practice. They don't even know what to do with themselves because people wanna come in and they wanna emotionally purge, right? So they're gonna do that trauma dump, and then I'm right there to catch it, catch it, catch it. It's like when they're like, "Oh, I'm trying." You're not trying, you're doing. Like, you're
Yeah.
doing it. You're either doing it bad or you're doing it good, but you're
Mhm.
doing it. The mind doesn't resonate with trying because that just is a procrastination. If you're always in I'm trying, then you're never achieving. So it's just catching those phrases that we say, and how can we change that? And that's the magician.
Yeah.
The magician is going to step in and catch all of that and say, I'm not sick, I'm healing. I'm healed. I'm not broke, I'm abundant. What are your main words? And then what's the opposite on the spectrum of that? Or what's
Mhm.
your negative emotion? And what's the positive emotion of that? Right? Like
Mhm.
you can't be sad and happy at the same time. You can't
Mhm.
be in fear and courage at the same time. They don't match. So if you recognize I'm feeling a lot of fear, anxiety right now, well, then how can you alchemize that? Right? It's doing the opposite and the empowered version of that. And that's the same thing with the archetypes.
Yeah.
Well, the moment you feel like I am self sabotaging right now, I'm going to flip that script and become the magician.
Yeah.
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 And then go do all the spiritual things you need to do. Like for
Mhm.
me, I'm going to burn sage. I'm going to sit in nature. Some people like to do journal work. I'll doodle things, like if I just need like a mindless kind of thing, playing music. Any of
Mm.
that is the magician in you because you're taking what is negative and you're shifting it into a positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the prostitute is the lover. So if you are negotiating your power, how can you then come back and love yourself? And a lot of times the prostitute is because you don't feel worthy. You don't feel seen, you don't feel loved, you don't feel like you're good enough. You're doubting yourself, all of that. So when you self-love and you're
Mhm.
nurturing you, how can
Yeah.
somebody come and attack you when you love yourself more?
Mhm.
Right?
I think that has to do with boundaries too. Somebody I know really well just went through this where they realized that they were kind of a prostitute at work, and they were just saying yes to everything. Do you want to be on this committee? Yes. Do you want to be on this board? Yes. Do you want to do this talk? Yes. Do you want to work? Can you take this extra shift? And it was just yes, 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 and like work became paramount in their lives, and then it was setting boundaries. And it's interesting because people respect you more when you start doing that.
Yes, they do.
I mean, at first they were like, "What? What?" you're not going to work this extra shift.
Yeah,
But then I think people like that.
they do. And I'll give you an example. So where I work, we have a lot of different agencies that come in, like community agencies. And right now we are a drop-off voting site. And so they have their ballot box. And I have 2 spaces where I'm at that are mine. And so I didn't realize at first, but the voting box was being stored at night in one of my spaces because my room's all locked up. And so yesterday I came in and energetically, I was just feeling like all this anger and just turmoil and stuff. And I was like, what the heck? Why am I feeling like this? Now there's some personal things that I was trying to mentally plug into, like, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. But there's this underlining in me that was like, no. So connecting to intuition, spirit, and all that. So I sat down and I was meditating, and I have a sound bed. And so I was guided, like, go get on your sound bed, put on some drum music. And so I'm blindfolded. I got my headphones on, the bed's vibrating. I'm doing my thing. And I did a journey to the upper world. And I said, I need to see why I'm feeling all of these emotions. And the brain's trying to plug in. All of a sudden, this big blue box shows up. And I'm like, oh, you need to get that out of your space because you're tapped into the collective energy of the voting. And I was like, oh, crap. So maybe an old version of me would have just said, it's okay, I'll work with that. But instantly I text, this needs to go out like ASAP, like right now. Like, I can't have this in my space. And she was like, oh, okay. But that is being able to love myself enough to say, I can't feel what I'm feeling. Like, so whether you believe it or not, I'm good.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so it did. And then when I went to work today, I was like, oh, it felt so good.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I got that container. But the prostitute in me probably would not have stood up for myself. I would have just accepted it and said, well, it's only one more week, but no, instantly I was like, I'm not, that's not.
So if
Yeah.
you feel like you're being treated as a doormat in any situation by friends or family or relatives, or especially in the holidays, then that could be some prostitute behavior, going places that you don't want to go, or being with people you don't want to be with, or
Yeah.
obligations and being treated poorly by others.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's like, with the holidays coming up, I always tell people, you want to see how healed you are? Go have a family dinner. Go hang out with your family because they will push every trigger button you have. So it's a great way to recognize where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Is there anything for the child that needs to be done, worked with, transmuted to get to
All of
sovereign?
it. Forgiving your childhood, just being in your own power now, knowing that our parents, they operated at a level of consciousness that they had. And a lot of times we're parented by our parents' inner child and their archetypes, right? So it's like, what are their archetypical patterns as well? And how did they show up as our parents? Say a parent has a bully in their archetype and so they bullied you as a child, right? They were abusive, or they maybe not abusive physically, but emotionally, or they just poked at you, right? Well, if you can see that your parent has that, then it's easier to give that forgiveness. It's easier to have that compassion because chances are they probably had a bully in their parent, and so it is that generational trauma that occurs. And the only way to break that is to forgive and to release. And that's the sovereignness of being the healed child, is to say, I recognize you for who you were. And this part of my life sucked, or this sucked, but at the same time, I know that you did what you could at the time.
Yeah. So there's a requirement to connect with and develop an intimate relationship with your inner child.
Yeah, with all of them.
Yeah.
With all of them, because when they show up, communicate with them.
Yeah.
Because they are energetic beings as well. They're the light and the shadow. They're a dimension of yourself, right? We're multidimensional beings. So they are a dimension of you. So you can communicate with them. Ask them, what do you need?
Yeah. Well, Shantel, I love this conversation. And what's so cool about it is that there's hundreds of archetypes and we've gone to 4. So there's so much more to learn, and there's so many ways that people can deep dive further into this. So I would love for you to just share like how people can connect with you, your offerings. I know you offer classes on this specific topic as well. And so, how can people connect with you?
So I do have my own practice called Reiki 7-Point Healing. And on Instagram, you can follow me there. And that is Reiki, the number 7, and then Point Healing. My website is currently in process right now of building. So that's happening, but you can follow me there. And then I'm also an instructor and teacher and facilitator or whatever with Moon Rising Shamanic Institute. We have a free platform also with Shamanic Mystics, Moon Rising on Facebook. So you can follow us both there. And I have master classes as well with soul contracts and archetypes. So I'm currently in one right now. It's an 8-week program where you work very intimately with your archetypes and learn how to contract your own, to map out your own soul contracts. Tarot, I do shamanic work, shamanic healing, distance, and Reiki, teacher, coach, mentor, all that.
Yeah.
All the fun spiritual stuff that comes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. This is so good. And if people want to reach out to you, then they've got a lot of different ways, but I appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you. I appreciate you too.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.